like to call to order the agenda of Belton City Council special meeting March 30th, 2021. At this time, we're calling a work session to order. What do we have for items, review, and discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening we wanted to discuss the Southview Building 4 Plan and Development Agreement. Carolyn, do you have an introduction for that?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight's work session is regarding the plan and the development agreement for North Point Development's Southview Commerce Center Building Number 4. Upon the conclusion of the work session this evening, the plan and the development agreement are on tonight's agenda, which is item D for the first read. The plan is for the construction of a 501,000 square foot Class A industrial distribution warehouse just north of the existing Commerce Center. The $30 million project is anticipated to begin construction in 2021. The applicant has requested tax abatement, which would be provided pursuant to the issuance of bonds in accordance with Chapter 100. The city's credit is not at risk for these bonds. North Point will be required to make payments in lieu of taxes to the taxing jurisdictions. The current taxes collected for the project site, which consists of the former Century Concrete plant and the neighboring 20-acre parcel, is just over $11,000 annually. North Point is also seeking sales tax exemption on construction materials. These materials will not be purchased in the city of Belton or Cass County. A plan for development was prepared and notifications to the taxing jurisdictions were mailed according to state statute. The development and performance agreement addressed the design, the construction, operation, and maintenance of the project, and the development incentives for the project, including the obligation to make payments in lieu of taxes to the affected taxing jurisdictions. North Point will be required to operate and maintain the project as a Class A industrial commercial facility to continue to receive tax abatement and incentives for the project. I just want to take a minute to do a quick recap of the positive economic impacts to our city. The elimination of blight at the entrance to not only our city but our county, a $30 million capital investment, a workforce development center to be utilized by the Belton School District and MCC, a public-private partnership for the complete replacement of the old cast iron water line along Allen Avenue, and North Point will engineer that project. And additionally, not to forget, the estimated 250 new jobs for our community. As you will recall, the applicant made a presentation to council at last week's work session, and that presentation is in your council packet tonight. The applicant is here, perfect timing, Brent. And Sid Douglas, the city's Economic Development Council, is here. He's going to make a brief, he's going to take a deeper dive into my overview.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll go in a little bit more some of the numbers of what Carolyn was talking about. We are talking about the construction of a 500,000 square foot Class A building. It's estimated to cost about $30 million, and if no abatement or anything else was provided for the project, over the 20-year period after the project is constructed, the city and taxing jurisdictions could have expected to have received $9,295,000 in property taxes during that time period. As was discussed last week, there is a modified payment in lieu of tax schedule from the prior agreement that was approved for the previous 3 buildings that have been constructed. That pilot payment was increased from the prior transaction. For this building, the payment in lieu of tax is going to estimate out about $3,301,000, resulting in property tax abatement over the 20-year term of the abatement of $5,933,000. The increase in the amount of the payment in lieu of tax that results from the schedule we use for the first 3 buildings versus what we're doing this time in additional concessions that was negotiated with North Point results in another $316,000 of property taxes that would have been paid if we'd used the prior schedule. That's about a 10% increase in the overall amount of the payment in lieu of tax. As Carolyn indicated, there are sales and use tax exemptions available for the construction materials being purchased. None of those materials are expected to be purchased either in the city or the county. The amount of sales tax exemption that is expected for state sales taxes would be about $133,000, and then another $343,000 of exemption for use tax for the state and the county. The additional payments that the company we make in this time, last time we had the city retaining $50,000 of building permit fees. Any excess over that amount for each building was used to reimburse them for public infrastructure that they put into the project. For this building, the city will be retaining $150,000 of building permit fees, and then any additional fees that are paid in excess of that would be used to reimburse the company for additional public infrastructures being purchased or installed, whether it's sewer lines, street and road improvements. As part of the building, it is a 500,000 square foot building. They are setting aside 2,500 square feet. The company will be constructing that and providing tenant finish to that space. For whether it's the school district or the Metropolitan Community College, they'll be able to utilize that space, but we'll be responsible for the utilities, but that's the only part of the project that they would be responsible for paying. A significant element of this project that's being negotiated, including in the development agreement this time, is to help with the infrastructure for the water lines in this area. North Point will be responsible for paying the cost of the engineering to do all the design work for all the water lines in that area. The company will be responsible for building their own water lines that connect along the outer road over around their building and eventually connecting into 157th Street. They'll pay for all those costs themselves. Additional improvements that will be contemplated will be upgrades and improvements to the Allen Avenue water line. The city will be responsible for building and constructing that element of the project. And the company will be providing up to $600,000 towards those improvements. The city will build and construct that and bid that part all the way down Allen Avenue to 162nd Street and across 162nd Street to Interstate 49. It's kind of the overview of what the plan is for the project for this building. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Savage.
What is the, turn this on, we're responsible for utilities on that 3,000 square feet, roughly 3,000 square feet, is that what I heard you say?
The city wouldn't, it's 2,500 square feet for the learning center.
Yeah.
Whoever the tenant is, it's not the city would be responsible, but if it's the school district utilize that space, they'd be the ones that'd be responsible for paying the utilities.
Okay,
That or the community college is
Or the community
looking
college,
at that.
right?
okay. And what about maintenance on anything that heats it, lights it, whatever? Who's picking that up?
The setup of the initial space to outfit it for the community college will be bore through North Point, and that's through an agreement that they will have with MCC.
That's the setup, but what about the maintaining it? They're paying for
Of the interior space?
Yes, I mean, obviously there's utilities involved, but also there's lights, there's heat and air, there's things that's gonna have to be kept. Who's
Right.
taking care of that?
Right, so the utilities in that space would be the responsibility of the tenant of MCC. The utilities, once it's set up, it's
Oh.
gonna be,
And the maintenance
any
also.
maintenance would be the
Okay.
responsibility of the
Okay.
tenant.
Thanks.
Councilman Clark, you were next.
And maybe this will come up later with Dave and all that, but what kind of infrastructure improvements we're gonna do on 155th Street for this project?
None.
None? We're just 3 lanes, or that's a 3-lane. We don't think we need any more to turn lanes or anything onto that?
There was a traffic study performed, Mr. Clark, and The traffic study indicated there were relatively small volumes from this building, from the driveway on 155th Street, and the capacity of the street was sufficient for those volumes.
I guess my next question as a council member, in 2 years, we determined that there is too much traffic volume, then it relies back on us then, right? To fix that?
I guess conceivably that could be the case, yes, sir. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you.
On that, Dave, we don't control both sides of that road, do we?
No, this to the north half is City of Grandview, and we have the south half City of
Okay.
Belton, yes. Mhm.
Councilwoman Davidson, you were next.
To kind of piggyback off of what Councilman Clark was asking, the traffic study that was done, did that take into account a fourth building?
Yes, it did. Mhm.
And who did the study? Do you know off the top of your head?
I'm gonna have Greg help me out with that. I don't remember the author.
It was Olson and Associates?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it was, they used a different company. They used, out of Garden City.
Do you want to go ahead and ask the next one then?
Yeah, sure. You talked about overage from permit fees. Am I understanding that correctly? What was it, $150,000 that we would be getting from permit fees? And that any additional could be directed other places?
To the extent that the permit fees for the project were like $200,000, and I think that's kind of an initial estimate. If the city would retain $150,000 to use part of like any building permit fees, any excess above the $150,000 would be used to reimburse the developer for public infrastructure that they put in place. There are going to be some sewer line improvements that need to be done. It could be used for, if there's other public infrastructure costs that need to be paid, that they could be reimbursed for those too.
So are we able to suggest or direct that any overage be used for the water line, additional water line replacement on Allen Avenue above the $600,000?
That is the water line improvements was one part of the cost that was excluded from the elements of what they could be reimbursed for. What the city keeps the money for, and they want to use it for the water line improvements, the city would be free to do that. The 150 would be reimbursing North Point for public infrastructure that they install that's going to be dedicated to the city.
And so the change in the pilot, sorry, I have a lot of questions. The change in the pilots, it sounds like that was in our favor.
Yes, ma'am.
Why not keep the pilots the same? And then, I don't know if I'm thinking about this the right way, but I'm trying to get to a way where we have more money going toward that water line on Allen Avenue and we're not paying for it. So then if we had the change in pilots and it was in our favor, would it be possible to take that additional money and put it toward that water line replacement? Our portion of it?
That's not what has been negotiated. I guess legally that would have been a possibility. But it's, the increase in the payment in lieu of tax was primarily driven towards helping the other taxing districts as part of this process, as opposed to necessarily the infrastructure around this project itself. What the city does with the receipt of its portion of the pilots is up to the city to do. If the city wants to take those funds and apply it towards other water line improvements, that they could do that. The same would be true with, whatever your building permit fees that are going to be captured, the $150,000. You could use those for those type of similar permitted purposes.
The workshop or the learning center that's going into, proposed to go into this building number 4, that was originally supposed to go into one of the other buildings, was my understanding. Not by agreement. And then the 2,500 square feet about that we have allocated for that learning center, how did we determine that? Was that something that was given by the school district or?
No, we went out and viewed the existing site that they have at their Edgerton location. The school district joined us there, looked at the approximate size of that location, found it to be acceptable, and so that's where the average came in at.
So I'll just say, I went out and visited with homeowners in that area Sunday night and kind of took a look at things. And there were a couple of things that I noted just from what I saw, but then I have a couple of notes here from the homeowners that live in that area that I'd like to address as well. One of those was the inconsistent berm height around the current buildings that are there. Number two is a water pressure concern. Residents are worried that 4 buildings, well, even the 3 buildings and now 4 buildings could present a bit of a low pressure water situation for them. It was also brought to my attention whether or not we have adequate fire department equipment to fight a fire on one of those buildings, particularly the bigger one that's number 3. And then another one was building subdivision streets to guarantee that new homes will actually go behind that row of houses where we're taking it from what, I think 56 down to 21 or 22 lots. And in general, they just felt like there was not anybody advocating for the homeowners. A couple of items that they noted. Some of the construction had started earlier than what we had agreed to. Somebody noted that there was concrete being poured at 4:30 a.m. They had a lot of dust nados due to dry dirt. Nobody was watering the dirt. They feel like the complaints that are sent to the city never go anywhere. There's no follow-up. And in the event that there are changes to the plans as the construction goes on, you know, how are those changes being addressed and publicized? And so that's really just what I noted in talking to the people out there. I did not meet one person, I'll say this, I did not meet one person that was against this. I think that everybody I met understood that that land would be developed at some point. They just would like to be heard. They have some concerns based on things that have happened with buildings 1 through 3, and they'd like some guarantees for the homes that are proposed to go behind them at some point. So just kind of bringing those concerns to light.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing that? What we got now?
Mayor,
Sir?
the street option, I can be corrected, this would be a good time to correct it, but the street option, it was said last week that they could, if you want them in, tell us you want them in. Did I understand that wrong?
Say that ag- I'm
For the
sorry,
housing?
Councilman Savage, could you repeat that again?
For the housing portion of it?
Yes, sir?
I believe the comment was made that we just need to know which way to go. If you want the streets in, we'll put them in.
That's correct.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah, and since the council meeting, if I can, and I don't know if you want me to address any of those questions, I'm happy to address any and all of them.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay, so, to let me hit your question first. We've talked to 2 builders. One builder said, I'd prefer you put the streets in and I'll develop the lots. The other said, I'll take it as is. So, you know, we give you that protection of the deed restriction as the minimum, so that gives us the Y in the road of, however, we don't care. We tried to separate that out from the development agreement itself, so we didn't want to imply that the tax abatement or something also applied to the residential. So we felt, I think as a team, as a group, keep it clean, put the deed restriction, make that a requirement of the final plat. But us as a group, if you say if you have a preference of what we do, I don't really care. It's going to be the same amount for me. I'm either going to sell a developed lot or a piece of ground that someone else is going to develop and build for the residential. So My goal was to essentially start on those simultaneously. Like, I don't make anything with 22 lots just sitting there. So if we need to get the builder up and going simultaneously, we would do that. So if there's direction from council how you want me to do it, I don't care. I'm either gonna build the streets or take less land, less price because someone else is gonna build the streets.
So you want my comment on that?
Yes, sir.
Just listening to the comments last meeting of at least a couple, I think it would be best to go ahead and design and build that street.
Okay.
We have a good working relationship with you. I think we can get done what we want done.
Yeah.
Not saying we can't with others, but I believe that would be a more smooth way to go,
Okay.
in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
I think you have the ultimate restriction with the deed restriction, and then it would just take me some time to get those platted and get through, construction design documents. So I would just see those going simultaneously for you.
And then in respect to, and this is not necessarily directed to you, but in respect to the berms, I had several calls throughout the building as well. And I not only came up here and looked at our original, looked at the site, line of sight on numerous occasions, and we were on track on all of those berms to the way we had designed them to be, and there were no changes. Dave, I met with you, I know for sure, on a few occasions. Was there any changes to the berms?
No, sir, there weren't. There's one small place where the berm kind of follows the contour of a drainage area where the berm falls down a little bit, but there's no houses abutting it, so the berm is spot on. And the
And the
berm
line of sight come out the way it planned to be?
yes, I believe it does, yes.
And Councilman Savage, I think take that another step. If you could see your staff in action, we have a Thursday morning call with them. This is meant to be a compliment to Dave. Dave is a stickler. I think we shot the elevations of those berms to ensure, I think we shot elevations on everything that Dave
Sure,
wanted
it should
to
have been
see.
done, and I'm satisfied it was done.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Trutzel was next.
I prefer North Point to do the road development. Turn it over to a builder. Sometimes they put that on the back burner and we're going to do that project sometime in the future, who knows when. I would prefer to see that down, planted and operational for the lots ready to go, even though it's going to be more of a problem for North Point to do that work, but I think that's a better possibility.
Okay.
If that's
Councilwoman
the-
Davidson.
So just in being out there Sunday night, the berms are extremely inconsistent, and some of the lowest parts of the berms do abut properties. Some people have a straight shot to the back of the warehouse, and they were kind of under the impression that that would be not only a sound barrier, but also provide some sort of visual barrier to seeing everything in the warehouse. I mean, there are areas along that back end where you can see the dock lights even. So I would suggest that somebody, I mean, perhaps they were done correctly into elevation, but it is a current problem for people out there. So I would suggest that someone go out there, and if we need to make the suggestion that the berm be the same height as some of the highest areas of it, because there are two areas that are pretty high and do provide a decent amount of coverage from people that abut that. If we could do that all the way around, I know people would appreciate it.
I would caution, there was at one point that we were working in a certain section that we were trying to build the berm higher because we knew it was a desire. But because of the lay of the land and how it fell, if you continued to make that berm at the same height, it made that berm completely unmaintainable. It was like a mountain, so being able to cut the grass or maintain whatever the growth is that's on there it wasn't feasible. So that's when we went back to the original drawings, looked at what it was, and actually through that section, not only did we had to cut down the berm a little bit, but, and then accordingly, we just added more landscaping through there and added fencing, excuse me, in order to raise that, the view.
So, I'm talking about, so on White Avenue, or White Drive, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one it is, but, the White Street, the properties that,
157th.
yes, that are there, that's one of the lowest parts of the berm, and it's pretty extensive.
Yeah.
They've already seeded that area, so I assume it might be one of the ones you're talking about, but
No,
it's not,
It's not the one I'm talking about.
it's not good.
And actually, Chris Chancellor went out and spoke with some of those homeowners out there, and they are looking at what their options are right now for 157th Street.
Okay.
For those individuals that are there because of the, it not being as tall.
And
So,
Councilwoman Davidson, I can't tell you the exact specifics. Chris apologizes, he had to hit something with his daughter. Just bluntly, she locked her keys in her car, I think running somehow. So he's dealing with that at her school. But he texted me, I don't know if he's watching or not, but he told me that he met with the neighbors. He's agreed, I think we're gonna get another 5 or 10 feet on what we originally proposed on that berm. So we'll just note it specifically, and we can follow back up through staff and directly to you of kind of the, final elevation there. I think we'll obviously come back through final development plan, you'll see that anyway, but we'll stay in communication about getting that berm higher for that area, okay?
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I know the people will really appreciate it. So I feel good about that. I also feel good about you all putting in the streets for
Okay.
the housing. So that's the two things that we can kind of check off our list. Anybody have any thoughts regarding the water pressure concern? Is there a study that we can do? Anything like that even exist? Are we sure that we're not going to have to put another water tower over in that area?
I'll let Greg answer, but generally, that's part of your final development plan. We've got to do that anyway for insurance purposes, especially our financiers, Northwestern Mutual. So we do a hydraulic study, a water study. They'll literally go out, take the pressure at the hydrants, run a model with us. So it's part of the checks and balances that we go through as well. Greg, I don't know if you want to add anything on to that.
In the main portion for the homeowners who live up there, the benefit that we're having in this project is that we're able to replace the water line along Allen, which is going to be able to supply more pressure up in that area. That is one of the keys to this project for us, is that we are going to end up with that water line that's going to go down and connect to the water line they've already built across their project, which goes to the outer road, which can get the pressure to that area. So we will be increasing the size of the line and be able to increase the pressure to the area.
Thank you. I still don't want to pay for that water line, but it would be nice if we could come to some sort of agreement about using the additional pilots that we would be receiving for the water line replacement on Allen Avenue, the portion that we would be responsible for. So I'll put that out there.
Councilwoman Davidson, I'll just say right now, my opinion is, the pilot schedule and how you notice it and all that is complicated. You get a very small share of that pilot. I don't know what your percentage is. I'm gonna guess 10% maybe of that pilot, right, as the city. So if you wanna see that needle move for you, I'll just agree, just so we have clarity, the permits were 50,000 a building on the first one. I moved this one to 150. You have my word, we can revise the agreement. I'll just give you another 50, 200 as the fee. That way we just don't have to redo the pilots, because I don't think you're gonna get 50 more as the city anyway if you go back and do whatever, just because you get such a low percentage. So, we'll just up ours 50 grand and Sid can document that, but instead of going through those gymnastics of math, I'd rather just give you 50 grand more in the permit fee.
And we can put that toward the water pipe?
You can do whatever you want with it.
Councilman Trutzel.
The school district's going to be a little upset anytime that you start messing with the pilots and go leave it like it is. They're actually getting a better deal with what you're proposing. So I appreciate that you've made a positive change that in their favor. So I'm not sure I want to go back and do anything different.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that if we can keep it on the other side of the ledger of the permit and not mess with the school district, give them more, I think everybody wins in that pie grows.
Councilwoman Davidson.
And do we have equipment here in Belton, Fire Chief, to fight if a fire was gonna break out at Building 3? You know, worst case scenario, what's the situation?
Well, there's a lot of fire safety systems built into that. That's what we're hoping would prevent and lessen any fire within that building. The truth is, if all those systems failed, there's only 1 or 2 fire departments in the United States that would be able to handle it. So inspections, the systems they have installed, and then with us in our pre-existing mutual aid agreements, I'm confident that we can handle most anything that would happen there short of catastrophic failure.
Yeah, and maybe I'll address that just real quick. And again, it's no offense to this fire department and your fire chief, but it's the case. We've got $100 million of goods sitting inside it. It is the most complex fire prevention system in the country, especially on Chewy's building. Like, for example, Building 3, we use what's called factory mutual standard. It's the highest standard. Smoke vents and ESFR sprinkler systems, the water pressure study, that's a factor into why we build where we build. If it doesn't pass that test, we would never build that building because we want high pressure system, right? So your department is mostly trained in we're getting people out, it's a safety, it's a concrete building, right? It's designed, and we've had our incidents, you know, True Value, we own a building with them. Something caught on fire inside, it's super contained, you have in-rack sprinklers, you have all kinds of ESFR systems, alarms. If you think about it, it's not your typical house. There's literally $100 million of product sitting inside it that we care a lot about from the tenant's perspective.
Oh, Councilwoman Davidson.
It's me again. So you're asking, as part of the incentives, an exemption on sales tax. This always confuses me because you're not the first one to ask for an exemption on sales tax, yet most people already have contractors lined up or providers, and so they wouldn't be buying these materials locally anyway. I'm wondering what the theory is behind that.
The theory behind it
Yeah.
is that state exemption that we have is obviously we don't buy concrete, we don't buy steel, we don't buy any of that in Belton. We don't buy some of it in Missouri even, so that's said when he went through that. It's for those exemption certificates where it's point of sale, we're buying that material, then that's a savings. Obviously, what we look at is that doesn't affect these taxpayers because we weren't buying it here either. Anyway.
It's just a tough case. You know, people, I think, want to know why we would give some sort of a tax break or an incentive to somebody and not require them to buy materials here locally. I mean, even if Belton is not seeing sales tax on it, at least businesses are benefiting.
Yeah, and just bluntly, you don't have a business that can sell me the product. It doesn't exist. You don't have a steel fabrication plant. You don't have a concrete tilt plant. Like, that doesn't exist in your city. If it exists in the city, we've done ones where we say we know we're buying something just coincidentally, and I don't know, peculiar. If we were doing, if they had a plant, then we would do that. So, but you just don't have any. You don't have anything that produces the things that we build in this building.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Trutzel, you were going to say something.
I brought up about the fire concern myself, but we went through a discussion at that time about the mutual aid. And so, I'm satisfied, and obviously your explanation of the fire prevention inside the building is much better than I would ever guess. Thank you.
Along those lines, I was in a neighborhood meeting yesterday over in Meadow Creek, and they had a small fire, and they had 4 different agencies there in that area at Meadow Creek, 4 that I saw, different ones. And so they work, that's a well-oiled machine, I think is a good way to say it. They work real well together. Other comments? Councilman Clark.
I'll just piggyback off of Councilwoman Davidson. I was over driving around Allen, White, I guess it's 157th Street. And I just think when we designed that fourth building, what you guys were talking about there on 157th Street, those people have a direct line of sight to Building 3, and not knowing exactly where Building 4 is going. I actually drove up to the concrete plant and looked up there too. So just, I always want to make sure that we can get some type of protection up there for these guys when they look out their backyards, just not looking at the building. So but I would concur that if we can do some berms and stuff on White and 157th Street when we do the plans, I think that would be beneficial to them.
For sure. We've done some final grading and layouts, and honestly, just coincidentally, we had about 10,000 cubic yards that we weren't accounting for spare. So I think they're gonna get bigger berms than they imagined, just because if we can use them, and that makes everybody happier. So obviously, you'll see that through, Dave, in your review process, and comes back through as, final development plan things. But obviously, you'll have the ultimate say, but we will put attention on that berm specifically.
I think my comments are it's directed to you, Mr. Miles, but it's also, I want to make sure staff is recognizing that the homeowners over there are being protected also. But Dave and his staff are the ones that ultimately are going to approve the plan designs, and so.
Yeah.
But I
again,
appreciate your.
As a compliment, I deal with, that sounds negative, Dave, sorry. I work with lots of community development, planning directors. Dave is very particular.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Just one more suggestion I would make, and this seems really simple, but I find that sometimes simple suggestions go really far and mean a lot to people. So I would suggest starting a dedicated email address and handing it out to citizens that live along the warehousing development down Allen and also White, the 157th. That they could email you directly to this special email address set up through Outlook or whatever we're using, so that those complaints are going to someone specific within the city, and somebody's actually reading and going through that mailbox pretty regularly, so that concerns can be addressed as they come in.
Other questions, comments? Oh, let's see here. Do we have anything else, staff?
There's nothing else from the council. There's nothing more from staff. Thank you.
All right. This time, we will adjourn the work session, and at this time, we'll call the meeting to order. And I will lead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Okay, might we have roll call?
Mayor Davis,
Here?
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Lathrop,
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Van Winkle,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Finn, Councilmember Davidson,
Here.
Councilmember Peak.
All right, we have personal appearances. Today we have City of Belton Park Department 2021 Cruise Night Main Street Cruises. You want to come up, please? Brian, thank you, our director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Probably about 60 days ago, we were approached by the downtown Belton merchants and asked us to consider taking over the cruise night program and the fall car show. And so, considering the financial opportunities for revenue, we have agreed to do this. They're aiding us through this process for the first year, and they basically asked that, it was that time of the year where we come and we approach the council for consideration to shut down Main Street from Herschel Street down to Chestnut. So we anticipate making very little to zero changes for this first year. So it's my understanding this is kind of a common annual request. And so that's why we're here tonight.
You ever been to a car show?
Yeah.
Okay. Questions, Councilman Savage?
Is there any of the businesses got any problem with it this year?
I've talked to 2 or 3, but most of the conversations that have taken place have taken place through members of the old group, and they've told me that everybody is on board. Although I haven't seen this particular cruise night program or the car show, to my understanding, there's quite a crowd of people that invade Main Street and for a Saturday afternoon, evening, and I would assume at this point with COVID that they'll benefit from the revenues, and so I have not been told specifically anybody that's opposed to it.
Thank you.
Councilman Clark?
Do we need to make a motion to approve these street closing, or is this just a formality?
Yeah, we'll have to vote on it.
I'll make a motion that we approve the closings for these dates that are noted in the times noted in our agenda.
Got a motion? Got a second, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Did we get Chet's? Councilman Trutzels?
He gone.
Yes,
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next, we have a plethora of speakers this evening, guests and personal appearances. Remember that you have 5 minutes to speak tonight. Okay, Rob Powell, you're first. Will you give us your address, your social security number, and
Hello, I'm Rob Powell, 802 Main Street, and I'm one of the 3 Ward 4. Doesn't work? Yeah. Ward 4 residents who are running against Gary Lathrop for City Council. I think the other 2 are here too. During the last 3 months, I've visited the homes of over 90% of the registered voters in Ward 4. While campaigning in the Dykes Edition, which backs up against the Southview Commerce Center, or in their words, that thing back there, I recorded several comments about these warehouses. Some of them I can even repeat. No one is very happy about a quiet, unused golf course being converted to boxy warehouses in their backyards, and even if the warehouses will possibly save them taxes in about 15 years. However, when construction noise interrupts your day, blasting shakes your walls, lighting keeps you up at night, random noises startle you, strangers walk within a few feet of your backyard on a path which also creates flooding situations, and there's more traffic on your unsidewalked streets, then it's a little more annoying than losing your view of the sunset. But I imagine most of you would claim that the first 3 warehouses are a done deal, and the 4th warehouse, which you're acting on tonight, doesn't come close to hardly any Belton residents, and we really don't care about Grandview across the street. I disagree, and I urge you to talk to residents, and some of you have, about the Dykes Edition, about how to prevent future problems in construction and operation before you proceed on this vote. Also, the plans for this 4th warehouse show the obliteration of a family farm that has been in Belton probably since Belton became official. That's okay, as long as the family owning the property gets a fair price. But according to family members, the family still owns the property. How can this council make all these plans on zoning and entering into agreements with a developer before the property is in the city's or the developer's hands? And the final issue is the question, why is there a special meeting for this tonight? What is the rush? If, and I know it's a big if, several of you aren't here after April 13th, are the new council persons going to consider this issue a little more thoughtfully? I hope so. Thank you, and have a blessed Holy Week.
thank you. Next, I have Linda McKelvey.
over here, right? Well, Councilmember Davidson stole my thunder because she brought up most of the issues I was going to bring up tonight. About the only thing I might add to that would be 3 years ago, when City Council approved the original building, some members appeared, or some residents appeared before the council, and they requested no truck traffic signs be installed on White and Allen streets. I would like to bring that up again and ask that that happen at the zoning commission meeting. It was acknowledged that increased traffic have occurred on those roads. I'm going to go through my notes real fast. The only other thing I would like to add is that I would like to thank those council members, those zoning members, commission members who actively engaged in conversation during the meetings of the past 2 to 3 weeks. I appreciate you being involved. I appreciate you putting forth some positive measures, such as the covenant, such as the berms, and I'm aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Dennis Mood. And address, please. Look. Kelvy, M-C-K-E-L-V-Y.
Good evening. Just to give you a little perspective on what our position is on this. As Linda just mentioned, I'm sorry, I didn't give you my address. I live on White Drive, 15612 White Drive. Linda and I have that home off the corner of 157th Street. And 3 years ago, Linda and I moved here from Springfield for the purpose of being closer to relatives in Overland Park in Kansas and up in the north side of Kansas City. We looked to buy a home in Spring Hill, Kansas, because that was an up-and-coming neighborhood. Didn't quite fit. None of the homes really looked like the right one. We went to Lewisburg, we went to Raymore, and again, not the homes that we saw just didn't quite hit the nail on the head. We were going to buy property in Peculiar, possibly build our own home, and we looked at newly built homes. Again, not the right fit, until we saw the house that we're in now on White Drive. We did see a larger than normal backyard. We saw the quiet neighborhood, and we saw an overlay on the property behind us on Sunset, and the plots marked out. And I said, oh, wonderful. We have a developing residential neighborhood coming up behind us. This is perfect. And we bought the house. Well, lo and behold, we didn't know about the plans that you had for the property over on the golf course. Had we known, we probably would not have bought that house. We wouldn't have moved here. Our neighbors told us about the council meeting not too long after we moved in. We moved in June 3 years ago. We didn't know about the upcoming plans, but a neighbor told us about the meeting, so I attended. Linda was busy unpacking and still setting up the house because we had just moved in. The room, as I recall, was packed with residents. As a matter of fact, my impression was that if I wanted to get up and turn around, I had to go outside the door to do it because there were so many people here. And every one of them was against this project. 3 years later, which is now, we saw a promotional video that North Point had put out to the public on their website. And our mayor was making comments praising the company and the construction. If I quoted him correctly, or paraphrasing him correctly, he said that he would drive by this place quite often, twice a day, toward work and back home again, just to look at the buildings. As a matter of fact, they are very impressive buildings. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't have to drive my car to see them. I look out my dining room window, or I go out to the backyard for the barbecue, and that third building is staring me in the face. Go down to my mailbox, and I've got a whole line of sight of all three buildings. I don't even have to turn the ignition on in my car. Lucky me. That helps me out quite a bit. I have no expectations of this council not going, I have no expectations of them not going ahead with this project. If you guys ignored a room full of people, standing room only, 3 years ago, I doubt very highly that the 6 or 8 people that are here tonight would make any impact on your decisions. To the representatives of North Point, we do not disagree with wanting them to bring their business here and develop property. It's just that nobody, as you've seen here tonight with other information, nobody wanted this stuff in our backyard. The people that are around the surrounding area just wanted a proper residential neighborhood and kept it quiet. I used to work for IBM, and this pertains to the council. I used to work for IBM. Every year you got a performance rating, 1 to 5. If you had a 5, you better watch out for your job. 1, you were doing an excellent job. But if you did more than your normal, which was a 4, if you did more than your normal requirement, you were paid attention to a little more. You got to pay sooner. You pay on a higher part of the grid, the pay grid. Higher management looked more favorably on you, and you were assigned to more important duties. You were more respected because you put out a little bit more. Why is that important now? Well, a lot of the complaints about the meeting and this project were that people weren't notified and didn't have an opportunity to voice their opinions on this and have an influence on the council. Well, we were informed that only people that were within 185 feet of the project had to be notified, and that was the minimum requirement. Well, congratulations, you guys did the minimum possible. That doesn't get us, that doesn't, favor us, or it doesn't favor you to the residents, just doing the minimal. We expect more from our council. And I'm sorry to say that we really feel slighted and feel that you guys have not done anything beyond the minimal. And in closing, I do have a question to put to the council, because you guys caused me to consider this. Why the special meeting tonight about this project? Somebody else just brought that up for a few seconds ago. Could it be because maybe after this coming election, people will be sitting in these seats that don't approve of this project? So why push it through now before the election? It concerns me quite a bit about the people who represent me and my area, my neighborhood. It concerns me a great deal.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we're moving to consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes. Regular agenda. A motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2021-15 as amended.
An ordinance approving an amendment to the city's zoning map from M1 Light Industrial District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District to an FCI Flex Commercial Industrial District for 26.55 acres of land located at 5901 East 155th Street and 6107 East 155th Street, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Motion is second. Discussion. Councilwoman Davidson.
Why are we having a special meeting?
Okay. Question to staff?
Actually, this isn't a special meeting, this is an additional meeting. Council may recall when we reduced the number of meetings that we had per month, we always stated that if there was additional work, we would always have a meeting if there was one needed. And so this is another standard meeting, it's not a special meeting. Special meeting would be if council were training for an item when we've had special trainings before. This is actually just another council meeting.
At the top of our agenda, it says special meeting.
It does say special meeting. We actually discussed this in the last week because an administrative function that had always been done that way when it was occurred. And so in going forward, we won't be doing that.
I guess I had this issue when we voted on the first buildings initially. There was a motion to move into a second reading, and I feel like while this time, there's been a week to separate the votes, typically there are 2 weeks separating votes. And I feel like in a situation that is as sensitive as this, we owe people that respect. So I would say that, and really, my second point, which has kind of been addressed by some of the public comments we had. For anybody that doesn't know, we do have an election next Tuesday. A couple of us are running. I would like to ask a question to North Point. Have you contributed to anybody's campaign currently running? Thank you.
Questions? Councilman Clark.
I guess my question, I'm assuming the 185 feet is the state law, is that what we follow? One of the things I think we should look at moving forward, and I see this in other communities, you'll drive by and you'll see you call them a snipe sign? We can call them a snipe sign, I like that word. It just says that this land is being rezoned, and I just didn't know if that's something I think in the future that maybe we ought to look at as a city, instead of, we got to do our certified mail to the requirement, but I think putting up a sign, just letting them know that if we put something out there on 155th Street, that this land is being rezoned, and the planning and zoning is having a meeting on a certain date so they can be engaged in it. It's just an extra step that I think maybe we could look into doing in the future. That's just my thoughts.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Councilwoman Davidson.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I would make the motion to actually delay this until our next regular meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. I'm going to take a drink. Seeing none. Any other discussion? No discussion? So, may we have the roll call?
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Savage,
Aye.
Davidson,
No.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Peak, Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes. Going on. B, approving the final reading of Bill number 2021-16.
An ordinance approving a special use permit to allow warehousing in an FCI Flex Commercial Industrial District in the Southview Commerce Center, located at 5901 East 155th Street and 6107 East 155th Street, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Motion and second, discussion. Councilwoman Davidson.
I would make a motion to delay this until the next regular meeting.
Seeing none. Moving on. Councilman Clark.
I'll make a comment here. I think as a citizen, and I live over close to these warehouses too, we had a golf course there for a number of years, and it was bought out in 2007, and the land's been sitting vacant. And when you look at something along 49 Highway, and I've had conversations with other community members about this, what goes there? What can you put between 155th Street and 163rd Street? You're not putting residentials. People don't want to live next to a highway like that. I mean, we're not building walls and stuff. So we have, we're either going to put in commercial or industrial buildings. And I think our job as citizens and council people is to protect our fellow citizens. And I wasn't here the first time when the first three buildings were here, but I'm in support of the first three buildings. And I feel sorry for people that live behind it, but I think our job as council members is make sure that we put a project together that's good for the city. We put some berms up and we try to protect the citizens that live close to it. I was on the first time when Aaron's Family Fun Center was being built, and I had people that lived behind that, and we had the same type of complaints of loud and stuff. And I hope when construction is done that we move forward with this project and people are more satisfied with what you guys did the first time and what we're doing here today. I believe building 4 and bringing in jobs to our community benefits us as a community. So, you know, I get that people don't want to live next to this stuff, but I mean, I don't know what else we could put there. We have looked at shopping centers, we've looked at all kinds of stuff. And sometimes having apartment complexes there is not the best thing either. So I apologize if you don't like my vote, but my vote's going to be yes on this project because I think it's great for our city. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councilwoman Davidson.
I would just say that we do have residential along I-49 just south of us. There are subdivisions that are right off the highway. Another thing that was kind of brought up in our last session is the conditions of the soil as they were treated by the golf course. That was something that a citizen mentioned who lives over there. If the soil was in terrible condition, and I'm not sure I don't remember what they used to treat the soil for a golf course, but they were concerned that they'd never seen any kind of abatement happen at that site where the warehouses are currently. And we know that they've had dust storms over there, so could it be that, you know, sometime in the future there's some sort of issue with folks that, you know, breathed in the dust from the soil? There are just a lot of concerns still outstanding. And I hear what Councilman Clark is saying. I just wanted to make the point that there are residentials along I-49 just south of us. It is possible. It's just a matter of what you want, really.
I guess I could take that one on a little bit. They are probably a little more than 600 feet away from the highway, just south of us. And the other point is that this is at least 600 feet away. And the other point that I think I would make is that, again, we're talking about blight. We're talking about jobs. The concrete in the farm is got probably 8 or more buildings that are dilapidated. It is also blighted. And our number one goal is jobs in the city. So are we gonna let this property sit here again for another 15, 20 years and hope that somebody lands in there and builds Shangri-La? It's not gonna happen. It hasn't happened in 15 years. It's not gonna happen tomorrow. So we just wanna leave it that way, and that's not good. Our number one goal is jobs. Chewy has great jobs, great money, paying these people $18, $19 an hour, and I mean, we're helping our citizens to find. We're helping our housing. We're getting all kinds of housing because we've got so many people making jobs. And that's a big factor in our city. The school district wants houses. I hear that all the time. We're gonna get lots of houses, yes.
Yeah, Mayor, I did want to speak up to one of the items that was addressed here and to talk about the how the greens were treated. It was through an arsenic that greens up those areas, and those were cleaned up. Those were a requirement that I believe, Brent, if you'd like to speak to that.
That was monitored and designated and monitored through.
Was that actually a brownfield, considered a brownfield?
Yes, it's heavy metals that are on the T-boxes and the greens that they use to green them up. So it's required action. We had a remediation plan approved by the state. They monitored it, and all said and done, they signed off on it.
So if we put a soccer field in there like there was a original plan, they would have had to done the same thing for having kids to play soccer out on the field. Okay. Councilman Trutzel?
One thing that's been left out of the discussion, that land out there was vacant forever. I know when we first made the first project, the people were upset because there weren't going to be deer out there and there were going to be this open field, and they just loved the open field. Not realistic. But the bigger problem is not that. It is you have to have a developer who has deep pockets, money to be able to do these things. And we were extremely lucky to find somebody here, North Point in this case, who came here, saw a piece of ground and decided, hey, we could do something pretty miraculous here. And again, if they don't have money, you can talk all you want about what you could do, and the future can hold all kinds of possibilities. But if they don't have money, they're not going to be able to do anything. So, it's some of the stuff is just unfortunate. It's unrealistic to expect that to stay as a green spot forever and ever. It just isn't going to happen. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of land around Belton that's going to be putting it into whatever it might be, buildings or houses or something, because it's all going to come. It's all moving south. It moved east along I-70. It's now moving south.
Other comments, questions? Councilwoman Davidson?
I just have one comment. You said a few times that our number one goal is jobs. And while that might be the city's number one goal, that might be your number one goal. I don't think that we as council people have actually had that conversation. I hear a lot about water bills more than I hear about jobs. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that was in a strategic planning. I don't know if you were here then when that was developed. That was our number one goal in our strategic plan. And again, we can talk about water at another time. Other questions? Any comments? Seeing none?
Councilmember Savage,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Davidson,
No.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Van Winkle,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Peak, Mayor Davis.
Aye, and that motion passes. Okay, I'm on C. Motion approving the final reading of Bill number 2021-17.
An ordinance approving the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan pursuant to Chapter 353 of the Revised Statutes of Missouri, establishing the redevelopment area described therein as a blighted area, and approving the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan policy.
Present. Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Councilman Clark.
Mayor Dare, so I'm recusing myself again.
Get out of here.
Okay. Can you get me some coffee while you're out there? Okay, who's up first on the 353? Anybody? Councilwoman?
So I just wanted to get clarification, since we're voting on this for the second time. It is possible that somebody could apply for a retroactive abatement. It would just mean that they would fill out the application, it would come before the council, and it's our decision whether or not we approve it.
Yes, that is correct. And based on some staff discussion today, kind of one of the things that we were thinking was projects currently under construction and having that be the stopping point for going back. So a project that's already completed would not be part of the Chapter 353, but any project that is currently under construction at this point could apply.
What's the reason for that?
That would just be to set a bright line right now rule, so that we wouldn't have to have the debate continuously about whether or not we go back 1 year, 2 years. And then if you go 1 year, do you go 1 year and 1 month? That was,
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I guess that was my point in asking this question originally, was whether or not we could get consensus in the council that we set a line of 1 year or 2 year retroactive. Because there's been significant construction on Main Street within really the last 3 years.
and I think that clarification would be welcomed by staff. Yeah, and also I do want to make sure everyone's clear. There's actually a 3-step approval process. It goes to the first staff reviews, then the board of the redevelopment corporation recommends approval or denial, and then the council gets to see it. So there's actually 2 other bodies that'll be looking and reviewing these plans prior to them coming to council.
So to that point, the first 2 steps are procedural in that it's really just checking boxes to make sure that they qualify and meet all of the requirements.
Exactly. They comply with city codes, they comply with the plan policy, they comply with those sort of ministerial things prior to coming to council for the ultimate legislative decision.
Yeah, my point in asking that question is I just want to make sure that that there's not a preference, that it's all just kind of a systematic checking requirements.
Yes, and that's the point of the plan policy, is to make sure that there is no preference given. It is purely checking boxes to make sure everything complies.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a list here of addresses that are currently under permit in the Old Town area, and there are 7 current open permits, just as a little bit of background for council, in case you were wondering.
More questions?
And I'm so sorry, Mayor, let me clarify that. So there's more than 7 open permits, but there's 7 open permits that meet the criteria of the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan and that 15,000 minimum.
Go ahead.
So if we did vote to amend this to make it retroactive to 1 to 2 years, I don't know, to be determined, that retroactiveness would be determined on the finish date of the improvements?
That would be for the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Corporation Board to decide and then bring before council.
Okay, I gotcha.
Anybody else on that? You want to?
I would also say from a functional point of view, projects that have occurred a significant time period ago, might have an issue with proving up some of the qualifications for the plan policy regarding the amount of money spent on the exterior, sort of some of those basic things. So that's not as huge of an issue, or at least I don't see it as big of an issue as it could be.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that somebody who is doing exterior repairs on a commercial building probably is keeping taxes from 2 years ago and has all of that documented, but.
Some. I'll just say some.
So I guess I would make a motion to make this, or to add verbiage or amend it somehow that we make the program retroactive for 2 years prior to its passing tonight.
Okay, we got a motion?
I just have a question, but I guess we have to vote on that first before I ask a question.
Or a second is still,
Seeing none. Any other discussion? Go ahead.
I do just have a question. When these have been done before, do they go backwards, or do they just start from the discussion, kind of like what we have to, as soon as this is voted and approved, we move forward with
in this case, staff, we all took a kind of a different approach than what we typically do. We typically identify a couple pilot projects, and then that's the only retroactivity that will occur. But in this case, the city didn't want to be seen as playing favorites at all prior to this being approved and in public and having hearings. So we didn't do that. Instead, we just approved a true forward-looking plan with the potential to go back for pilot projects. But so, no, typically what occurs is that pilot projects are approved with the first reading, and then nothing else goes back.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
It's a roll call.
Roll. Is that a final?
Yep.
Okay, I've already went down to D. Roll call.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Aye.
Lathrop,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Peak, Van Winkle,
Aye.
Savage,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. That motion passes. D, a motion approving the first reading of Bill number 2021-20.
An ordinance approving a plan for an industrial development project and a development and performance agreement between the City of Belton, Missouri and North Point Development, LLC, and authorizing certain agreements and other actions by the city.
Present.
Second.
Motion and second. Okay, before, I want to say that the city invites affected taxing jurisdictions to submit public comments pursuant to RSMO 100-059. All comments will be fairly and duly considered by the city and will be entered into the record. Is there anyone here to speak from the taxing jurisdictions? Okay, economic development, Carolyn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have received letters of support from the following taxing jurisdictions and related organizations: Cass County Commission, Mount Pleasant Special Road District, Metropolitan Community College, Belton Chamber of Commerce, Cass County Corporation for Economic Development, the Belton Cass Regional TDD, and Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. I will read one letter of support into the record. The one letter is a representation of them all. Dear council members, please accept this letter as an expression of full support of North Point Development's proposal to expand the Southview Commerce Center to the north, adding a fourth building of 501,000 square feet. The building is an opportunity to both eliminate blight and welcome another new business to Belton and Cass County. North Point Development has successfully constructed 3 flex industrial buildings totaling 2.1 million square feet in the all-new Southview Commerce Center, which has been successfully leased to national users, bringing new jobs for citizens of Belton. North Point Development's reputation precedes themselves as a company who does what it says they're going to do. This redevelopment and expansion will eliminate the blight of the former Century Concrete site at the entrance to the city and county, and will also occupy the vacant parcel to the east of Century Concrete. Both parcels total 27 acres. Additionally, this project includes 22 new single-family residential lots, including 7 acres of open space with berming to buffer properties to the east. The 2 parcels, 27 acres, currently collect a total of $11,221 for all taxing jurisdictions combined for 2020. This expansion is a capital investment of $30 million and, combined with its potential to create 250 new jobs, will add a substantial amount of revenue for the community while spurring further economic growth. For the reasons stated of growth in revenue, job creation, economic vitality, elimination of blight, and new residential homes, please accept full support of North Point's development's proposal for a fourth building as presented. And this particular letter is from the Cass County Commission and is signed by Bob Houston, Presiding Commissioner, and Monty Kisner, Associate Commissioner for District Number 1. And at this time, I will present the letters to the city clerk for the record.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I would make a motion to delay this until our next meeting, regular meeting.
Okay. Seeing none?
Mayor?
Ma'am?
In light of the motion that was made this evening and the discussion that was earlier, I've talked to Sid Douglas for some amended language for this motion in order to capitalize on the offer that North Point graciously made to increase the amount of the permits that would be in section 4.02 sub B. Sid?
Yes, I think it'd be suggested that you have a motion to amend the development agreement to incorporate the concept in 4.02B, that the city would be able to retain building permit fees up to $200,000, consistent with the discussion with Mr. Miles this evening. That revised agreement would be presented with the second reading at your next council meeting, but that you go ahead and approve that concept to be incorporated into section 4.02B.
Make a motion that we incorporate the, Mr.
Mr. Miles?
Douglas?
No,
Douglas.
Sid Douglas said. That's a long one, Sid. I mean, that's. Our other attorney just says, follow me and say yes, and I'm like, okay. So I'll make a motion, we say, we amend the motion to, add the language that Sid Douglas said.
Do we need any kind of, anything? Go ahead, Patrick, what do we need?
Need a second. Second.
Okay. Did we get a second?
Savage.
Okay. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Now we're back to the regular, and that was D, approving the first reading. So any more discussion? Councilman Clark?
I'm just gonna make, Dave Clark comments here. I don't, we get beat up. I mean, I got people over in Martinwood that want sidewalks. I got people that want cheaper water. We want a lot of stuff without being taxed. The only way to do that is bring in developments like Southview Commerce Center and bring in jobs. Without Chewy and without some of these other jobs that are coming into our community, what we have coming in is going to allow us as a city to take that money and be able to help with our infrastructure. If you don't want jobs in our community, I mean, our water rates are going to keep going up. Your taxes are going to keep going up. We got to be able to provide infrastructure. The only way to do that is get people to come into our community that gives us 2,400 jobs that are going to come in here. So jobs pay the bills. I mean, we're going to have people coming in here. They're going to live in our community. They're going to shop at our stores. We're going to get sales tax from the people that sell the e-commerce over there. So if you want infrastructure improvements, you want jobs. It's flat out. I mean, you can't have infrastructure improvements without jobs unless you want to be taxed to death. And by the way, I hate taxes. So I want to go the opposite route. I want to go after the retail sales. I want to go after jobs. I want jobs in my community to strengthen my community to make it a better place. Then we can take that money and we can do the stuff that people are wanting, like putting sidewalks in your neighborhoods and hopefully reducing our water rates in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments? Councilwoman?
We don't know who the tenant is for this fourth building. We have no idea if they're going to be sales tax, revenue generating. We don't have any of that information. What I would ask, Mr. Miles, do you have an estimate as to how much the incentives package will be saving you? Do we have a total?
I would say that it's not saving me anything, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it, I wouldn't, and there was a question about how can you approve this on land that I don't own? I think that's, we want me to not own it, right? I don't own it because I'm not buying it without approvals. So, to say it saves me nothing, I don't think that's a correct, I can't answer that because it didn't save me anything. I'm paying you $3 million more than you get today. That's how I would look at it, is to say, I'm not saving per se anything.
So then I guess how I would rephrase is, what is the monetary value of the incentives that we're agreeing to? Like the tax abatement. So when I feel like people look at me like I'm crazy, but when I try to be an advocate for getting that entire water line on Allen Avenue, when our cost share portion would be what, $500,000? $500,000? I don't know if we have a firm estimate yet. I don't feel like I'm asking for a lot when the value of the incentives package is $6 million and I'm asking for another $500,000. So I would just say that.
Mayor,
Councilman.
this is time I should keep my mouth shut, but I'm gonna open it. There's another way to bring that water line into these folks' building. It's by their choice and negotiation with folks here in this city that chose to put it toward that money, probably a good lot of that money that would bring that down to them, which would probably be easier, but it's a better plan to put it together for an existing infrastructure that needs to be put in and enlarging it, improving it, and taking it further than it would go if we were doing it. These folks can come on the east side of that building and head north, probably easier if you look at the plan, if you look at the layout that they could do and that was part of the plan before negotiation started. So at least I've got to say, we need to consider that too, because they could still do that with the exception of this negotiation where it ties them in to try to help this whole community.
Okay. What do we have? Any other comments? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That motion passes. E, a motion approving resolution R 2021-22.
A resolution reappointing Gary Lathrop and appointing Rosemary Howard to the Building and Fire Prevention Codes Board of Adjustments.
Present.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
I need to excuse myself from this one.
Yes. Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion.
Mayor, just to confirm, because of the delay in the Zoom, Councilman Trutzel, was that an aye for approving or an aye for oppose?
No, aye for approve.
Okay, thank you.
Golly. City Council, so that motion passes. City Council liaison reports. Parks.
So just as Brian was here kind of talking about earlier, they're excited about hosting the Belton Cruise Night in cooperation with Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. The first cruise night is April 24th, and stay tuned for more details to come. Saturday, April 17th at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., they'll have their spring craft show at High Blue Wellness Center. If you would like to participate, you can contact Melissa directly at mferrari@beltonparks.org. It's the first spring craft show at High Blue, a perfect destination the perfect destination for thoughtful Mother's Day gift ideas. And they'll have a variety of craft vendors for you to check out. You can also sign your budding artist up for our spring paint party for kids. These are really popular. It's April 30th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's just $25 for the first child and $20 for each additional child. Again, you can email mferrari@beltonparks.org with questions. And I don't know if anybody was there at the ball fields this weekend, but we were able to have the Easter egg hunt after not being able to have it last year due to COVID. There were a ton of people and kids. The Parks Department did an excellent job, and they really enjoyed the smiles that they had, and they wanted to give a huge thanks to their volunteers and their vendors. That includes High Blue Wellness Center, the VFW, and American Legion, who helped with the Easter Bunny stuffed eggs and getting them onto the field. There were a ton of eggs, I think 10,000, I want to say. Also to Hy-Vee and State Farm, Bright Car Wash for their sponsorship, and Texas Roadhouse for showing up and donating eggs. It was a really great event. Let's see here. And then save the date. In partnership with Belton Parks and Rec, you can stop by Belton's Academy Sports on Saturday, April 3rd and receive 20% off your entire purchase. What a great way to get ready for spring and summer activities. The promo code is available on their Facebook page, High Blue Wellness Center, and the Parks Facebook page, I should say. And if you like being outside and working in a fast-paced environment, they have the perfect job for you. The Belton Parks Department is seeking applications for a full-time seasonal maintenance worker for April through September. Qualified candidate will primarily focus on mowing and weed eating, but could be asked to perform a variety of unskilled and semi-skilled tasks in the maintenance and operation of parks and recreation buildings, grounds, open spaces, and parks. Must be able to work weekdays and weekends. You can apply online at www.beltonparks.org/jobs or at High Blue Wellness Center. And then some additional exciting news. I think I covered this last week, but the Parks Department will now manage the Belton Farmers Market. They want to say a big thanks to BCPI, Rob and Pam Powell for their years spent managing the market. You can follow their Facebook page for more updates. They're still working out some of the details, but the market will be held in Memorial Park, so the same location it's been for the last couple of years. This will be on Thursdays from 4 to 7 p.m., and that's June through October. They want to fill the lot with vendors and homemade goods, crafts, homegrown produce, and more. Vendor applications will be available soon, so be on the lookout for more details to come. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor's communication. Okay, everybody needs to vote next April 6th, the levy vote for the school district. A lot of colleagues, teachers are looking forward to a raise. I really recommend endorse that. I think that's a needy situation for our school district to keep the teachers there and not having them go away. We want to keep our teachers there and keep things going good. Did participate in Oil Creek cleanup this last weekend, and how many people was that there, City Manager, would you say?
We had close to 50 people that ended up volunteering.
And filled up, you say a dump truck load of?
Yeah, we had more than a dump truck load, and it was, I think, somewhere around 2,500 pounds of trash.
It was. Those cabbage bags they got kind of heavy. Those great big, cabbage, that was tough. I did see the ballpark. What kind was that? Was that softball at Markey Park? Softball tournament. It was packed. It was great to see people out there having a good time, and it was it makes a big difference for our economy to have those people out going shopping between games or going to eat. And it was spectacular. We have a lot more tournaments coming this year. On a serious note, thoughts and prayers for Councilman Finn is in the hospital. He's a pandemic victim right now. We all know when he was on last week, or last meeting, we want to make sure and pray for him and his family at this time. It's pretty serious. So with that, I'm going to go over to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to just remind everybody of the schedule of meetings that are coming up. Next one being scheduled for April 13th. That will be a dual meeting where we will have old business at the beginning. New business will start after the swearing in. I also wanted to update council that we finally got the approvals back from Mid-America Regional Council and the Solid Waste Management District on the questions that we were putting out on the recycling survey. We expect that to go out in the next week. I have a sample here for council that will be going out. ETC is assisting us with that project. There are 10 questions regarding recycling, 8 questions regarding city services, and 5 demographic questions. And ETC is completely responsible for that. That is being generated from a grant that we received from Mid-America Regional Council to pursue this. And we're real excited that we're finally able to get this culminated, and everybody has agreed, and Mark has agreed to the questions that we're asking. So, because that was part of the stipulation of the grant, is that they would approve the questions. So if you would like to see a copy of it, I have it right here. And Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
How is that going out to people?
Oh, it'll go out in the mail, and then they will have the option to either reply via mail, or they can get online. They'll have a number that they'll be able to go online and do it electronically.
Okay, any communications from the city council? Sir?
Yes, correction, I think I said water line laying east. I meant to say water line laying west of that project and carrying it north, just to clarify where that main is that they could have tied on to and stayed within their own piece. Thank you.
So we'll get that corrected in the minutes, maybe, if you want to remember that one. Yes, sir.
I mean, my comments tonight were, actually, I was just gonna thank Ryan Finn for serving on council. Did not know about his situation currently. But I think anybody that puts their name on the hat and to run for city council, so anybody that's running next week for election, I congratulate you for putting your name in there, first of all, but thanking Ryan for sitting up here. I think he's been here for a little over 4 years, if I remember right. I just, Ryan's always taken his job pretty seriously, and he's been a good one for our Ward 1, so I just want to congratulate Ryan. I wasn't sure if he was going to be here next week or 2 weeks from now, so anytime you put your name on a ballot, I think it's a good thing to have community involvement. If you win or lose, I think it helps everybody come together as a community. So congratulations for doing that, and good luck to everybody next week.
Anybody else? With that,
Move
I'd
to
entertain
adjourn.
a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? We had a voice vote tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.